I did want to say one quick thing, though, that I have two co-authors in this work that we've been doing for a couple of years now. And it's really exciting for me because Adam Friedman was not a doctoral student of mine, but he was an undergraduate student of mine when I was at SUNY Geneseo. He went on to teach high school economics for 4 years, and then go and get a doctorate at the University of Virginia, and is now a faculty member at Wake Forest University. So I'm writing with a former undergraduate student, so top that if you can. That's pretty cool. So, carrying slow my thunder, but I'll review it that today, by the time students graduate from high school, they've spent 5,000 hours reading, right? They spent 10,000 hours on their cell phone doing Lord knows what, and they've spent 10,000 hours gaming. According to Mark Prensky, and you can debate whether Mark Prensky has any real data to back this up or not, but it's a nice idea, so I'm going to run with it. So, twice as many hours gaming as reading. And Prensky has this nice digital native metaphor. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but I love the digital native metaphor in that these folks, born, around 1981, 1982, they have no idea what an 8-track is, what an LP is, let alone what, Laserdisc is, okay, or VHS or Beta. They have none of these ideas, right? They spend twice as many hours gaming as reading, but they also have an amazing ability to multitask. I'm sure you've seen this. This is Baby Blues, one of my wife and I's favorite cartoons. Daughter says, "Dad, can I use the computer for a second?" "What for?" "I need to log on to my school's website, download my homework, print it out." You know how to do all that? It's already done. When I was your age, I had to walk 10 miles through the snow to get to the internet. So these are digital natives. They also have, and this actually ties into your game, they have little expectation of privacy. So whether that's talking on their cell phone or, well, yes, we could read your blog, but you could just tell us about your school day. I'm glad it's somebody else. That's good. Right? So no expectation of privacy. So these digital natives then are the kids who are sitting in our classrooms both at the university level and at the elementary through high school level, right? They are natives. They don't know anything but digital technology. We are the immigrants. Now some of us speak with only a little bit of an accent, right? But we all have a bit of an accent in terms of the fact that we're all immigrants. So I have to quickly kind of context this work within the field of social studies, which is my area. Social studies is essentially defined as the following, and those underlined parts are key. The area in school, if you will, that promotes civic competence and helps people make informed and reasoned decisions for the public good of citizens. So if taxes are raised, we don't have riots, okay? They're supposed to learn about that in social studies. So it's the curricular home for citizenship education. Okay, that's a key part of the work that we're doing and that anybody does in social studies. So, but what about digital gaming and citizenship then? If social studies is education for citizenship, what do we know, if anything, about digital gaming and education for citizenship? What's the potential, for example, for reaching digital natives, for hitting those kids who know nothing but the digital experience? What are the potential for improving teaching and learning about civics and economics and history, but also developing the skills that are necessary to be an effective citizen in a democratic society? Because there are skills there, right? Maybe not quite as honed as that you need for counseling, but there are plenty of skills that are necessary though. And then, so what other potential is there? You probably all have a stereotype of a gamer in the back of your head. You might admit it. If you were to admit it, not that you hold it, somebody, I don't know, do you have stereotypes?
Yeah, they're wearing a t-shirt that says nerd.
Okay, all right, so they've got a t-shirt on that may or may not have been washed in the last few days, that, I think well, maybe something like this. Right, or this one, right? The young male, 17 years old, with Jolt Cola, a case of Jolt Cola or something in the basement. Okay, all right. All right, so there are these stereotypes, and certainly digital natives have been labeled as apathetic when it comes to issues about civic engagement, civic competency, participating in the world around them because they're doing nothing but gaming 24/7 in the basement. Right? Joe Kane, who is actually a political scientist, but who does a lot of work in the digital world, digital gaming, says that in fact some of these digital activities could lead to problems. he calls it cyber Vulcanization. I think that's an interesting phrase, that if you're engaged in these things, you're not engaged in the world outside of these games, and that's a problem. Okay? But there are some studies, growing number of studies, that say that teens who play digital games exhibit greater levels of civic participation, civic competency, we call it in the field. They can do the kinds of things that are necessary to be effective citizens. There's some research that says that gaming opens up the roles that people can play with respect to civics, that game play can contribute to both online and offline social capital, the ability to kind of know how to interact in various situations to achieve goals and that sort of thing, all of which are important for effective citizens. Some other studies indicate, this is a really powerful study by Amanda Lenhart. She's with the Pew Internet and the American Life Project. If you don't know that, the work of that group, man, they go from soup to nuts. It's really good stuff. This was a study looking at civic gaming experiences. So basically looking at kids who game, and do they get any kind of civic, broadly defined engagement within that game or as a result of that game. Here's a work, Kuhn Gordon, that said that the nature of these worlds, these synthetic worlds, these games, even like that Gary demonstrated, that because of their nature, people have to engage in dialogue. They have to interact in communities that they may or may not interact in otherwise. Okay, so there's some research that says that the opposite is true. It's not the stereotype, but in fact it might encourage civic engagement. Okay. And so in-game civic engagement, I just want to share this with you. This is from World of Warcraft Guild. I'm going to talk about those in a moment. But Ron Paul, remember Ron Paul, the conservative candidate who ran for president in 2008? Anyway, this was a guild in World of Warcraft that was started to promote the Ron Paul campaign. I mean, how much better does it get than that? So here's the Ron Paul revolution within World of Warcraft. Okay, so obviously within the game, they're developing civic competence to promote this particular candidate.
Is this something like Second Life?
I'm going to get to that, Bill. That's a great question.
I don't know what that is either.
All right. Second Life is a MUVE, multi-user virtual environment. This is a Morpeg, which I'll define for you in just a second. So, all right. All right. Anyway, back to the Lenhart study. Come on, stand task here. All right. Basically, they said, look, every kid games. 97% of kids in the, whether it's Diner Dash or something bigger, pretty much every kid games. And that many teams reported these civic gaming experiences within the game. So they helped each other within the game. That they played a game where they had to make decisions about a community, city, or nation should be run. That's your Sims game, okay? That's your Sims kind of experience. Or they played in a game where they had to organize kind of a community group. Some were called guilds, some were simply just groups within the game, okay? And these three areas were examples from the study. So the study that we have been doing, and this is actually kind of like a ratcheted up pilot. We've done 3 separate survey studies, and this is the most focused and the most fully developed. So it's really the tail end of a piloting process. But this is what we're looking at. Okay, Bill, this is for you. Okay, we're looking at World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is an online, what Ed Castronova calls a synthetic world. Okay, these are some of the operation screens and screenshots from within the world. But World of Warcraft is what in the field is known as a massively multiplayer online role-play game. Or, if you take that lovely acronym, you think yours is I like to call it Morpegs. Some people call them, I don't even want to go there, but this is the acronym for massively multiplayer online role-play games, okay? So what is a Morpeg? Again, this is for Bill. It is an avatar-based experience. So have you seen the film Avatar? Okay, if you've seen the film Avatar, that's like...
this is what my son spends hours on.
Okay, well now you're going to be able to say, there's a great book, one of Prince's books is Don't Bother Me, Mom, I'm Learning, which basically is I'm playing these games and I'm learning all these things from them, so stop bothering your son. I'm just kidding.
Remember that I collect and play final words.
All right, so if you play Dungeons and Dragons, okay, or you played Risk, or you played any strategy game, board game, these are essentially strategy board games in a 2 or 3D digital synthetic world. Okay, that's more or less what's going on here. So because of broadband connectivity, you can play with players all around the world. And these games are what are called persistent games. So your son plays for a couple of hours or 12 hours straight or whatever he's doing on the weekend. And then he goes to bed for a few hours and he wakes up, but the game has moved on without him because there are other people playing the game and interacting while he's asleep. So it's a persistent game. Okay, it has a life outside of your connection to it as a user. Okay. All right. So massively multiplayer. Any idea? Right now, if we were to take right now as a slice of time.
30 million.
I thought it was like 30 million.
And not quite that many, but right now, and if we were to go Friday night at 8 o'clock, it might be double this. But on average, anywhere in the world, there are 20 million people who are engaged in playing this game right now.
This game.
Well, mostly this game because this game has 80% of the market.
Oh, okay.
But there are others, EverQuest, Star Wars Galaxy, Ultima Online, and so on and so forth. But roughly, yeah, 20 million people. So what do players do? They control all aspects of their avatar. So they create a character, they go in the game. They are in the game. And what are they doing? Well, they're earning a living, they're buying food and clothing, they're interacting with other players. They're doing what we do in the real world. But they're doing it in a 3D synthetic character. So they
Are
might
they killing people?
I was going
All the time?
Get to that, okay. So joining a guild, creating a community, building a house, etc. They're doing these things, but they're also engaging in strategy-driven quests. Quests pretty much define the Morpeg environment. Okay, so where Carrie's quest is find the student who's going to commit suicide, this quest might be, let's take over all the property held by this guild over here, or whatever. But that's what defines it. So the objective's different. You're going to try to acquire gold, you're going to try to build status, you're going to get experience points, you want to level up. Big key in Morpegs is leveling up, right? That's why I asked about the experience points and how do you get.
Yeah, we don't have levels yet.
Leveling up is how you judge yourself, right? And people who are 80, they're on top of the food pyramid. So conquer worlds, you create and sell, buy and sell marketable goods and so on. Ed Castronova, who's an economist down at IU, calls these games synthetic worlds. Basically that they're constructed environments that, while you're in there, it's like 2.5D, right? It's not exactly real life, but it's pretty darn close. And many people blur the lines between real and synthetic. And actually, that's how I got into this. I was listening to NPR one day, and those of you who know me know my background is in economics. And there was a story on there about people who were paying $50 and $60 to buy digital gold within EverQuest, which is a precursor to this. They were using real money out of their pocket to buy fake money in this synthetic world. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's got to be a story there somewhere. And so I did some digging, and I read a book by, great book. If you're going to read one book to understand what this is all about, here's your book, okay? I read it on a plane ride to San Francisco, 2.5-hour read. Great book. Julian Dybel, Play Money or How I Quit My Day Job, Made Millions Trading Virtual Loot. Basically, what Dybel did was spend a year online to see if he could make a real income by buying and selling synthetic goods and services in Ultima Online. And he did. He made about as much as he would have made as a freelance writer over the course of a year. So he created virtual goods, gold pieces, spells, clothing, weapons. Anybody who's been spent any time knows it. Okay, Carrie knows. I know she's a gamer, right? And sold them in the real world economy. So these are ones and zeros, right? These are literally digital, they're pixels that are being sold. How are they sold? So you go to eBay and I say I want to buy 50 gold in EverQuest, and I'm going to pay this much for it. You use PayPal, the person agrees to meet you in a particular world and drop off the gold, you make the transaction, and there you go. And to an economist, it is a perfect illustration of comparative advantage, David Ricardo's comparative advantage. Because if I'm a lawyer, I don't want to spend 80 hours acquiring 50 pieces of gold, which is what it takes in the game, 80 hours. I want to pay someone who can do it in 5 hours, right? And because my time is valued at $300 an hour, I'm going to pay them $100 and I'm going to be way ahead. Got gold in the game, and I'm better off because I'm still writing Greece at $300 an hour.
What's the gambling aspect?
There's no gambling in this at all. Well, there are. I mean, you can, there are, you can gamble within the game, but it's a very small piece of what goes on. The online gaming, online poker, online casinos, that's a whole different world. Bill Hansen studies that. He's the gambling guy. So anyway, I haven't gotten this study yet. So between $2 and $20 billion a year in real money transactions that take place with people buying and selling goods and services in virtual worlds.
I don't want to know.
Between $2 and $20 billion. Okay? Yeah, wow, that's right. Okay, so what's the fit? Good question. What's the potential? I love this quote. It says, social networking sites like MySpace and Morpegs take the notion of citizenship outside what the state has defined, and young people who have very little idea of what citizenship is anyway, which is true, trust me, it's something that happens to other people. They're developing understanding that there are behaviors they need to belong to a community, the rules of the game. They're learning the skills it takes to be successful in these communities. And the question is, does it translate outside of those communities? Okay? And again, Ed Cascanova, he thinks that Morpegs are the petri dish of social science. So think of this. He had money from MacArthur Foundation to develop Arden. Okay? Arden was basically a Morpeg set back in the time of Shakespeare, right? Where they created two worlds. One world here and one world here. And all they did was double the money supply over here, double the gold supply over here. Everything else was the same. And because of the law of large numbers, you have 10,000 people playing at each site, and then they check the price of goods over here versus the price of goods over here, right? You can theorize that, double the money supply, inflation goes up. You can theorize that. But now we can experiment on that in a virtual world. I mean, right, the hair's standing up on the back of my neck right now. It is, because that is how cool this is. In terms of social science, literally, no pun intended, the world is the idea. So anyway, okay, so quick primer. A guild is a group of players within a Morpeg, in this case within World of Warcraft, and they can be, from a couple of people to a 1,000-person organization. They can be just for fun. There's a famous guild in World of Warcraft called the Naked Pirates, and basically in order to be in the guild, you have to go from town to town naked in the game all the time, and so they're fun, but mostly the goal is planning and executing a raid on other guilds for treasure or property, as we talked about. So a guild leader is the person who runs that guild. Okay, within World of Warcraft, and actually this is how pervasive. There's actually a World of Warcraft wiki where everybody can enter in all that you need to know about World of Warcraft. A guild officer, similar to the leader, has lots of privileges. These are kind of the first lieutenants in a military analogy. They run a lot of things, and you can see some of the skills that they have: alternate guild leader, raid leader, etc. And then they're the kind of hoi polloi, right? The foot soldiers, if you will. Those are the guild members. They make up the bulk of the rest of the group. All right. So Yi did a study in 2006 which says these guilds actually have a lot of skill development. You have to learn leadership skills, you have to learn crisis management, logistic planning, you have to be able to communicate with people, you have to be able to get people to do what you want them to do, okay?
Like a department head. Kind of. Sorry, I had just
all right. We're, we got about 6 minutes here. So these are the research questions for the study that we're engaged in. So to what degree do these guild leaders, officers, and guild members engage in civic gaming a la Lenhart, okay, within World of Warcraft? Are there episodes of civic gaming that they're experiencing within World of Warcraft? Are they, the officers and leaders, more likely than the regular guild members to have particular types of out-of-game civic engagement? So not just in the game, but does it correlate with more civic engagement? If you're a leader there, are you a leader over here? That's overly simplified, but that's what we're interested in. What are the civic beliefs of these, of these leaders? And do they differ? And then we just thought we'd throw in a twist here. What are the political orientations? We had the stereotype of the gamer. We talked about that. What do they look like? Where do they lean, if at all? So anyway, here's what we did. We started with a pilot instrument. Nick DeCanter actually developed his pilot instrument at the 2006 Ackerman Colloquium on Digital Technology and Citizenship Education. And we used that with a crosswalk of some other measures of civic participation These are nationally vetted instruments, and then some instruments from within the field of Morpegs or game studies. Constance Steinkuhler is married to Kurt Squire, and they're kind of like the first lady and president or whatever of the gaming world up in Wisconsin. So we did all that. Then we added some additional items from more of a civic ed, political science background, and we piloted it twice now. After the first pilot, we added a category. We only had guild leaders and guild members, and that wasn't enough. We didn't get enough differentiation there. So we added guild officer as a category, and we also realized, that not just people in the United States are playing this game, but people all around the world are playing this game. Hey, come on. Sometimes you just don't realize how dumb you are until someone tells you how dumb you are. So we created an online instrument through SurveyShare, 19 questions on guild leadership, 27 on civic engagement outside the game, and then demographic questions. And then one open-ended item where they could tell us anything they wanted, and we got some really interesting answers there. So this is this population. We did a convenience sample. We invited undergraduate students from educational technology at Purdue, Wake Forest, and UNC Charlotte, the 3 institutions, but we wanted that group because we wanted to be able to compare the results with the U.S. Census Bureau data on registered vote and actual voting. And their category that's most closely represented is 18 to 24 years old with some college. And guess what? If you're an undergraduate student at one of those institutions, you fit in that category, more or less, as long as you're under 24 or so. Okay? Oh, sorry. I got handouts. Okay. So, you look at table 1, these are the demographics, and you can see that some of our stereotype, every stereotype has a kernel of truth, that 75+% of the respondents are male, okay? So that first item, the male, definitely. And you can see the age range here. What's also interesting here is the range in terms of level of education, that even though we were going for the 18 to 24 some college, we did capture some graduate students, even though they were within the age range. They already had or were working on advanced degrees, okay? So that's our demographics. These results, okay? What about civic gaming experience? If you look at table 2, remember those from the Lenhart study? We had 3 items that were very similar. We couldn't use the same item because we were using, we crosswalked it with other kinds of instruments, so we didn't use them exactly, but I think they're close enough that we can compare the results. Helping, guiding other players, playing a game in which you make decisions, and then organizing game groups or guilds. And if you look at the results here, for example, players in my guild help each other learn. This was from the Lenhart study. At least sometimes they played a game where that was true, and you can see that the proportions here are pretty high relative to the Lenhart study, okay? Keeping in mind that we're mixing, maybe not apples and oranges, but Macintosh and Granny Smith, okay? Okay? And that those were, in the case of the first 2, significantly different. The guild leaders were more likely, the proportion was significantly different from those for guild officers and guild members, okay? From the current study, this was a quote from one of the open-ended responses, civic gaming experience, here's what people are learning. Lessons on fiscal responsibility and politeness, not to mention repercussions of actions. Let me tell you, online, if you do something out of line, you get peer censored right away, and that's true. Completely non-biased environment, no one knows if you're old, young, male or female, or what you look like. So this is from somebody who responded to the study. Look at the voting rates on table 3. The first 2 lines on table 3. I'm registered to vote if I'm 18 years or older and a U.S. citizen. As I said, the U.S. Census data is over here, 67.5% from the general population. And if you look at the numbers, even across the entire sample, that number is higher. And if you look at guild officers and guild leaders, we're talking about significantly higher. In this case, 20 percentage points higher for guild leaders, okay? And if you look, I'm not going to go through all these, obviously, because I don't have time. Sorry, but if you look down the list here, each place that there's a superscript A, there's a significant difference in those proportions. So there's a relationship between being in leadership positions and having or claiming to have that kind of civic engagement. Okay. I don't know, I'll try to wrap this up real quickly here. National Elections Survey happens every 4 years since 1948. They ask about 5 things that they call political participation. Campaign contribution, attend a political meeting, wear a campaign button, put a sign in my yard, etc. Okay, so there's lots of data on that. We can compare those. We also asked about some other civic engagement things. I've contacted someone in government, volunteered in my community. This is what we found. These are for the NES data. And again, you can look at the proportions of guild leaders claiming that they're doing these things relative to the National Election Survey, which is, those are the numbers for the 18 to 24-year-old group. They're significantly higher than the for our guild leaders and guild officers. Okay, you can see some of the other things that we asked them about. I've painted a protest sign or slogan on the wall. Yeah, not that high, but I still got a few people who are engaged in that kind of behavior. So that's good. And then again, every time there's a superscript A, that's a significant chi-square significance in terms of that. So, again, some more results. A vast majority of the leaders, guild leaders, officers, and members thought it was important to hear others, ideas, even if it was different from mine. Good when people discuss the country's problem, being active in state and local issues, my responsibility. These are all civic engagement, core kinds of ideas. And again, more than 2/3 of members agreed with that, and almost 9% of the guild leaders agreed with those kinds of things. So again, they're at least claiming that they have, that they're doing this sort of thing. This is table 4 in your handout, and cognizant of time, let's move on. Political orientation, this was kind of fun. Yi did a study 3 years ago, just threw it open to any Morpeg, not just World of Warcraft, and asked them about their sort of leaning on social issues, okay, political orientation on social issues. We wanted to look at both social and fiscal issues, because sometimes, and maybe it's just my background in social studies, people talk about being liberal or conservative, but they don't clarify. So I can be liberal on social issues, but I can be a fiscal conservative, and in fact, I am. And so if you don't clarify, it's meaningless for me. And so we tried to. We did social and fiscal issues, and here's what we found. Yi said that basically, everybody was left-leaning in the social category. We didn't find that. We found that pretty much everybody was moderate. Not everybody, but it was the modal category for both social and fiscal issues across the board. All right, so most frequently occurring response was moderate. One thing that was interesting about that, though, is that there's a little bit of a rightward lean on both social and fiscal issues for guild officers. Okay, if you just kind of eyeball that, you can see that that's true. Right? More so than guild members and guild leaders, there's kind of a rightward lean here. Now, I don't know why that is. I have my ideas that these are the people who actually get things done. So they're very concrete. And so I don't know. That's just speculation, but it's also an interesting little thing. This was, I will tell you, the point most contentious among the respondents. People were writing and saying, "What in the heck are you doing asking about my political orientation? What does that matter in terms of my gaming? Don't ask that." This one is find this misleading, hidden consensus or poll that means absolutely nothing to the gaming. Or we got flamed on a bit with this one. This is my favorite one, though. I don't know why you had a major component about politics and alternative dissident voices in a survey about WoW. Yes, the indoctrination program you live use in college, which I happily alluded, isn't sticking in the brains of mush that public schools are turning out. Well, that is even if they graduate high school in the first place. So I was like, okay, that really stirred the pot there. That was kind of interesting. So. Anyway, we don't really have time for this, but these were some of the other excerpts. This is one of my favorites. I wonder if service in the guild is not in some ways community service. For many of these players, they don't see the difference in terms of that. So, blah, 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 blah. And, yeah, so where are we going next? This is all pretty, to me, interesting. I'm not sure if it's interesting to anybody else, but it is to me. But is there any real leap to the classroom, either in the use of or tapping into the outside classroom experience of the kids, the digital natives who are doing this? you know, there are lots of policy as well as technical, logistical hurdles to overcome. I mean, these games are unbelievable processor hogs in terms of the amount of memory they take to run and so on. So, you know, there's a lot to overcome. We need to do more about differentiating our guilds. We ask, you know, are you a guild member? But there are a wide range of guilds, and we need to build in some questions that differentiate the types of guilds that people are in, and to unpack that a little bit so they're not just guild leaders, but we're leading a rated guild, or we're leading a social guild, or something like that. We learned that as we were going through the process. So, and then in-game civic engagement, I had a DeVita scholar, Nick King, good kid, good student. And his assignment, he loved it, was that he had to spend the time with me playing at least 10 hours a week in World of Warcraft. And then we met every week, and he shared his journaling with me in that process. And so, you know, he read the initial study that started this, kind of got a little background, and then he started interacting. And he had some really fascinating things to talk about. One of the things that he found, for example, was that there are all kinds of instances of civic engagement that you know, level 80s were helping, you know, brand new players, trying to level them up when they came into the guild, and that was unsolicited. I mean, you know, they would show up and say, hey, are you new? Okay, let's do this, and so on and so forth. Unsolicited. He called it, and maybe it's because he's pledging a fraternity when he was working with me, but he called it the fraternity effect, right? That everybody was really nice to each other, and they were trying to, and so on. So some really interesting stuff that came out of that. So we want to pursue more of that sort of qualitative in-game, you know, what can we pull out of that? And then we want to expand the sample. Nick DeCanter, who I mentioned the first, was an executive with Muzzy Lane Software, and knew people at Blizzard who run World of Warcraft, and we thought we had an in to get on the guild leaders official board, right? The official board, which would have given us a chance to tap into that huge, you know, they give us our stamp. We couldn't get it. They really, you know, anyway. So we're trying to get that, and if we get that, then we can do a survey that has 30,000 respondents easily. And then law of large numbers, all those differences, you know. So. Anyway, this is what keeps me sane, working on this. So, questions about any of that? A lot to digest in a short time. It's fun.
There's some kind of farm game on Facebook, is that right?
There are a whole bunch of farms. Yeah, I would put that in the category of I mean, there are a whole bunch of internet-based games. You know, and feel free to jump in here if you want to, you know, you're as much, that are not at this level. I mean, there's a hierarchy in terms of that. So these are massively multiplayer role-playing games. So not only do you have a lot of people playing, but they're taking on different roles, and there's a quest, there's some, you know, there's not a scorecard, but people know who's on top. There's a clear set of rules in terms of all that. Then the next level, I would say, are Muse, the multi-user virtual environment like Second Life, okay? And then there are others like, what is it, Eve, and I don't know, there's some others, but there again, there's not really a goal per se, and I would argue that there's a lot less teaming that goes on in those environments. And then there are the kind of internet-based games, digital games, you know, Darfur is Dying, or The Sopranos, or Diner Dash, or the farm game, and those kind of things. And yeah, those are definitely lower on the hierarchy in terms of serious games, in terms of Is that about right? Is that how you would describe it?
That's how I'd say it, is that, you know, and I haven't played World of Warcraft, but I mean, to some degree, some of them are, you can follow the quests, or they're totally sandbox as well. You can create your own.
Basically, it's, you know, the tagline for Second Life is what is it? It's your world.
It's your world.
Yeah, exactly, and that's more or less the way it is. I mean, these are they say 20 million, and that's, but there are servers around the world that can house about 10,000 players at one time. But within that 10,000 on that server, I mean, you can, you create, the race that you are, the clothing that you wear, who you interact with, the town that you come from, et cetera. I'm sorry?
The language?
Maybe.
But race?
Yeah, and are there,
Plays a role.
I know enough to be a little more than dangerous. I have never encountered, are there languages other than English? Yes, but is there a language within World of Warcraft? Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of, but it's possible, I'm sure.
And I mean, with all the different folks from different countries playing, a lot of times you'll see other
Absolutely.
languages show up
Absolutely.
in chats and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But it's not like you select,
Right.
you're gonna talk and it's gonna translate it
Klingon or-
into.
Right.
Well, I have a
No.
really question.
But like
Yeah.
for the selection.
I'm getting back to Carrie's game for a second, which is a different kind of thing. Yours is more of a simulation, in the sense that you enter into this game as an intern counselor, and you have this objective and a quest, you're on a quest kind of thing. And I buy the idea that they can hear the lecture, read the chapter, but then doing this would cement the concepts in a way that just the first two by themselves would not do. But here comes the root question. Does this put trouble in its work
I think it depends on.
for you as the developer?
For me as a developer, no. The trouble piece is getting the funding.
I mean, this is hard to do. It looked like a hell of a lot of work must have gone into that.
A lot of time and a lot of work did go into it, but really, my labor has gone into two things. One is setting up the content, and that's stuff that I have.
Right.
Like I know that stuff.
You
and I
need
need
the
to
concept.
structure it.
You could have given a lecture.
Yeah.
Right. And
And,
probably do
and
this.
the other piece has been trying to figure out how to get more funding so that I can take it to the level that I know that it can be.
Because see, I can see where you could perfect this thing for years. It just
Oh,
makes
yeah.
it more and more complex.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Could be
And
the
you referred to it, but the secret is hard fun. So that the secret to the best games, digital or otherwise, are that you can be successful, but you always can be learning so that you can be more successful. So that's where the idea of leveling up is such a powerful built-in incentive, and that, I have to know and do and succeed a lot to get to this level, and it's only when I'm at that level that then I can actually get this spell and this heart-seeking crossbow or whatever it is I need to go to the next level beyond that. So I don't even know what I don't know until I get to that point and realize, oh wow, I've got to go and do this to get that. So it's that hard fun, and that is the mantra and that's why so many, I taught on Apple IIe with Oregon Trail, okay, 1986 with green
And I
screen,
love Oregon
okay.
Trail.
That was not hard fun. That was motivational because it was new and interesting and different. Okay? None of this is new and interesting and different to digital natives. None of it. And just using it is not a panacea by any. In fact, if you put out a lame game, they will shut down. That's it. I'm done. I'm done with you. Forget it. So there is danger there in terms of that because of their experience with this digital world. So.
Another topic that's obviously in the news a lot today is Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been anything that you've seen anywhere where they've utilized this that would be as a activity or a therapy?
Yeah, it's a good question, and in terms of these multiplayer games, no, but there are a whole list of what are called COTS games, commercial off-the-shelf games, COTS, commercial off-the-shelf games, that are designed. There are games for the Wii, Brain Academy.
We've got the game out that are really designed to try and sharpen
Right.
cognitive skills.
I have an app for my iPhone called Cup of Joe, which is basically a brain function. You can try these little games and see how fast you can do them, and it focuses you for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever. And research seems to indicate that those kinds of activities, doing crosswords, doing engaging activities, that there's some correlation between that and not getting or postponing the effects of aging and Alzheimer's.
I saw somebody kill some Alzheimer's, but now I can't remember where.
Oh, it took me a minute to get that, but boo.
But there's also been evidence of using games in like anxiety reduction in hospital patients, and they're kind of, I'm not even going to say that they're fringe, but nursing is looking into it, medicine's looking into it, education clearly is.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and they're finding all sorts of very interesting kind of correlations.
And I mean, you don't have to go much further than your television to watch the way that the Wii and now the Xbox, what do they call it, Xbox Motion, are marketed. They are marketed in that they bring your family back together. That you can play and game as a family. So this is pervasive, both horizontally and vertically integrated into our culture.
You're aware probably too that the gaming industry has surpassed Hollywood now in terms of
Spending.
in terms of net income, net.
Well, I was sitting here, actually, I did not know that, but I was sitting here thinking that we probably see a paradigm shift. The internet will kill everything. Well, no, the internet will become everything.
It won't become everything, but it will be a avenue to, conduit for, vehicle
Right.
through everything.
We won't.
It already is.
People going to movie theaters will be greatly outnumbered by people sitting at home.
Well, no one goes to, not no one, obviously. It's like Yogi Bear, right? It's so crowded, no one goes there anymore, right? You're supposed to laugh at that.
I know that.
That, whether it's Netflix that you can get downloaded to your machine, or Redbox, where for $1 you can take home any movie you want. I mean, who goes to movies anymore? Not many people. People like us, digital immigrants, go to movies. Digital natives do not go to movies for the most part, unless it's 3D Avatar. Then they go.
And unless the big screen experience is going to be something that they cannot recreate.